Marketer of the Day, episode 592. Stay focused on gratitude. Shift out of negativity. Get empowered and transition to the next stage of your life with love and lifestyle coach, Terri Rose.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're chatting with Terri Rose, and Terri is a love and lifestyle coach, and she's a motivational speaker committed to serving those in major life transitions such as separation, divorce, single parenting, empty nesting, and or losing a job. And Terri encompasses the qualities of love and service to others. And so we're going to hear about what Terri has been going through, a little bit about her life story, and more importantly, or I guess equally as important, what sorts of tips and techniques and strategies we need to absorb so that way we live the best life possible. That way we can overcome some of these roadblocks, overcome the bad stuff, and have more good stuff. So Terri, glad to be talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me today, Robert. I really appreciate it.
Cool. I appreciate you too. So can you maybe tell us in your own words, we heard a little bit about what you do, but can you maybe tell us in your own words what sort of magic you provide here?
Well, the magic that I provide is supporting people through difficult transitions with love and encouragement to help them overcome challenges that make them feel like they aren't sure they're going to be able to make it through.
Okay, yeah.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, it seems like when people, we've all gone through like disasters and transitions, it seems like it really sucks to try to go it alone. And then many times we try to lean on our friends, and sometimes that doesn't work either because other people have their own lives going on, and sometimes they can't or they don't want to deal with that. So it really seems like what you're providing here is really important.
Exactly. And that is where my passion lies, with helping people in this particular niche who are going through the transitions of separation and divorce, empty nesting, single parenting. There's a lot of support out there for financial and legal advice in those areas. But as far as being held emotionally and supported through those experiences, there just really isn't too many that are serving that. Family and friends serve a great need in providing some emotional support, but what makes it difficult is it's hard for them to stay unbiased. And as you stated, they do have their own lives and they're experiencing their own, life circumstances that are going on and just aren't totally available in the way that you need when you're moving through those kinds of life transitions. And so that's where I come in. I've gone through that experience myself personally through a divorce. And I just realized, had I had somebody like me earlier on in that process, it probably would have really closed the gap for me on some of the emotional suffering that I went through that process. Had I had somebody to help coach me through and keep me uplifted and encouraged that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So that's what I'm here to provide for people now.
Well, fantastic. And what really struck a chord with me, what you said there is that sometimes when we just go for the friends and family to help us out, they'll always be on our side no matter what. And many times they'll just tell us what we want to hear. And sometimes it's like, well, it's great that you're, encouraging me and helping me out through these dark, difficult times. But then sometimes I need to just be told the truth, and otherwise I can't really grow from that. Or sometimes I need that impartial person who can maybe help me instead of hurting me even on accident. And so, yeah, I think that, and then like you said, there are, services for like legal and financial and things like that. But then as far as the emotional stuff, some of us need that sort of that love and lifestyle coach. So you said that a lot of people are coming to you with this problem of they're going through the divorce, the empty nest syndrome, the kids have moved on to college, or the single parenting. And so would you say that out of your clients, is it equally spread out, or do you do like more of the single parenting or more of one of these subcategories?
Actually, surprisingly enough, majority of the clients that I have are moving through recent separations or just recently filed divorces. I do also host a meetup group here locally in my community, and that seems to be the predominant people that are really coming forth and needing the support right now. So that's where I give most of my energy at this time.
Okay, great. So recent separation, they find you through a meetup group, and then where are people at when they are recently separated? Like, are they just like hanging on? Are they doing okay, but they need some guidance? Are they falling apart? Like, what's the emotional state of this typical person who comes to you?
Is really across the board. Some that are just really in the raw grief state, and others who have journeyed through a couple years of the process and are starting to get their foot back on the ground. And the others in between, where some are struggling with guilt for leaving their spouse. Some are struggling with feelings of failure, the loss, internally recognizing where they may have went wrong and letting it go. So I find that everybody's in different stages of the 5 stages of divorce, which is grief, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. So for the most part, most of my clients are coming to me in that stage of grief, denial, anger, bargaining. They haven't really shifted into the acceptance stage yet. So I'm really getting the ones that are really early and raw in the process, which is great for me because I've been there and I know and have experienced it firsthand. And I know that when you have somebody there that's giving you the hope and the encouragement and the empowerment to move forward slowly as you need, meeting them right where they're at is really the best way to be supported through that emotional process.
Okay, well that's great that you've gone through it so that you know what you're talking about and you've seen a lot of other people go through this. And so is there anything that is just helpful right off the bat for these people who are in this like kind of early stages of figuring things out? Any just like easy tip or easy way of looking at things that they should all know?
Well, the most important thing to me is self-care. And it's something that we don't really do a good job at, particularly for women, because we raise up families, we're the caretakers, we're running the households, getting the kids, doing all that stuff. A lot of single parent dads out there too are doing the same thing. And when we're out there doing that, we forget to take care of ourselves. And so we end up getting depleted. So I would say the critical, most important tip looking back on it, because I didn't do such a good job when I was in that survival mode, is to really take 15 minutes a day, even just carving out that 15 minutes a day, whether it's to read, to walk, exercise, talk to a friend, take a bath, whatever it is for you, go swimming, laugh, whatever that is. Just take that 15 minutes a day and create that discipline, because it really does help balance out all that's coming at you and all that you're feeling and moving through emotionally at that time. It really carves out a space to be able to manage it a little bit better.
And that's great advice. And that's one of those things that maybe some of us have heard about that before, but then forgot to implement it. And my understanding of that whole self-care thing is that, if we're going through some of these rough times, we're going through this like a light depression or something, then it's tempting to not take care of ourselves, right? To not exercise, to eat like crap, to not sleep well, to just stay indoors. And it's sort of counterintuitive to realize that, well, sometimes you need to sort of get out there back into the sunlight and force yourself to do this, like you said, just for a few minutes a day, so that way we don't just get trapped in that endless cycle of, well, I'm sort of sad and depressed because of all these bad behaviors, and then that leads to the more bad behaviors and the more being depressed. And sometimes we just need to like you said, reach out there or go swimming or take a bath or just those things just for a few minutes a day, because we deserve it, right?
Absolutely. And there you will experience days when you go through the divorce process and separation and the loss of family and all of that, where you don't want to even get out of bed. And there's just not always going to be somebody there to show up at your door to pick you up and say, come on, let's go have a cup of coffee, or let's go for a walk. You have to be able to do that for yourself. And if you don't, as you mentioned, it's a downward spiral, and it can really suck you into the depth of despair, which is the place that I'm committed to helping people not stay in. Sometimes you got to have a day or two and you have to feel the grief and feel the emotions, but you got to be able to shift out. And sometimes when you're in it, you can't do it alone. So somebody like me as your coach can come in and be there to mentor you and encourage you and give you different little exercises that help you stay focused on the other side of moving forward.
So what sort of exercises?
Well, I'm a real nature lover and outdoor gal. So one of the pictures that often you'll see it on my website, I love putting up my hands into a Y up to the sun and to feel the sun on your face and to really just stand very rooted and grounded in that position and just allow the flow of sunlight to feel those rays on your body and just be present for just a few seconds to do that is a huge little exercise that can shift in big ways. I'm a proponent, too, of having little dance parties with yourself. Find a song that resonates, that makes your soul feel some joy and dance with yourself. I'm a proponent of sticky notes, putting sticky notes of positive energy and positive vibe messaging that keep you on that side of moving in a positive way. Gratitude journals are always good, staying focused on gratitude and positive thinking is another way. Taking a hike, going for a walk out in nature, and I'm a strong proponent of water. Water is one of my elements that I love that helps me feel more grounded and lighter. So for those that resonates with, water's always a great way to kind of lighten up and relax and breathe. That's what you got to do through this process, is really be tender with yourself and have a good coach that's by your side, encouraging you along the way and knowing that you're not alone.
Awesome. And that's a really good reminder to get out there in nature. Like you always hear about different scientific studies that they've done where they say that just being around, that fresh air and the dirt and the trees and the plants and all that, it's like scientifically shown to help out your mood. And and I like to go on walks, and there's a huge empty field near me that I like to go through, and then there's a park near me with a river running through it that I like to just make the time to go visit. Even if I feel like I'm really busy or really stressed out, sometimes I tell myself that that's when I need that relaxation the most. And we can always find time in the day to go and do that sort of stuff. And so you really got my curiosity going with some of this positive messaging that you mentioned, as far as like you said, the gratitude journals and the sticky notes. So can you give us a couple of examples of what some of these sticky notes say so that we can get an idea, and what sort of things do you list in these gratitude journals?
Well, and one of the things I do as an exercise is I have my clients write down three things they're grateful for. And because when you stay focused on gratitude, it's more difficult to stay in anger, resentment, bitterness, hurt, pain, loss, grief. I help them also to focus on, seeing their ex-spouse in some positive way so that the energy doesn't stay focused on the fight and the loss and the negativity. Some of the things, like I have sticky notes that'll say, my life moves forward through desire. I am growing and changing with each new day. You can just do different things that resonate with the individual. Something as simple as, I am beautiful. I am amazing. I am lovable. Because many of my clients, they struggle with that. And I will never forget when I left my marriage of 13 years, one of the last things my ex-husband had said at the time was, you're never going to find somebody who loves me as much as I love you. And I took that to heart and took that with me. And I had to spend years really accepting that I'm going to be lovable again. And so any kind of little sticky notes around that is very common with the clients that I work with that really feel that they're still struggling with that self-acceptance and self-worth that they have with themselves. So any simple little mantras like that are good.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and like as far as those mantras, those affirmations, for the longest time I used to think that it was such a cheesy thing, and I mean, I guess it is, but in a good way. And I stayed at an Airbnb a few years ago at some lady's house, and she had these set up all over the place. She had like the sticky notes, she had all kinds of like wooden signs that had all the positive stuff. And at first I was like, oh geez, look at all these cheesy sayings, but I felt really good, especially when I went into like the kitchen where there was a lot of those signs up, in the bathroom where there were a lot of those signs up. I just was instantly elevated into a good mood. So I thought to myself, oh, maybe there is something to this, and to seeing this positivity all the time and internalizing it, so that way we can blanket out some of those things that maybe someone said to us in the past in anger that kind of sticks around, and that person saying it probably forgot it 5 minutes after they say it, but then for us maybe 5 years later it still sticks in our mind, it still hurts. So we need to overwrite that with some of the more positive stuff. And so you mentioned that, and you mentioned earlier, and you mentioned just now, that you yourself have gone through quite a difficult time back when your marriage ended. So can you open up for us a little bit and just kind of tell us like what happened and what you went through?
Sure. For me, my ex-husband and we were really great at being roommates and logistical partners. We had children, and unfortunately didn't have the support in the local community with family to watch our children. And during that time, his profession was really aspiring, and I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And so as his profession grew, I got to realize my dream, and he worked really, really hard to provide that opportunity for us as a family, which, forever I remain grateful to him for that. At the cost of it, though, he was gone a lot, and I felt alone and single, alone raising kids. And then when he did get home, there was so much to do to keep up with the house and the yard and the cars. And so we just ended up really kind of growing apart in that way, but really doing well as logistical roommate type partners running a family, and not having that support for others to watch our children so we could get away as husband and wife. I think really it just took its toll on us over time, and we just grew apart, and the gap got too big. And when, you don't have the skills to be able to bring it back together, and one or the other isn't able or willing or capable to get into the ring and fight for it, there's not a whole lot we can do. So it just took that path. And so for myself, I realized that it was just time for me to not stay in that situation anymore, because that's just not how I wanted my children to learn what a marriage between a man and a woman looked like. And we did our best, and but it's just something I just couldn't stay in anymore. So I chose to leave after a 13-year marriage.
Jeez, I mean that sounds sort of rough there, and like you always hear about hindsight's 2020, and you hear about sometimes when things aren't going that great in a marriage, sometimes it's important to find someone to watch the kids and then just get away, just the two of you, just to reconnect. And then you also hear sometimes about how some things just run the course like they do, right? Or sometimes just one person out of the two just isn't willing to fight. Like you hear about, like 80% of life is just showing up, but sometimes the other person just, doesn't want to. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but the consequence is that, maybe the marriage will be over if if someone doesn't want to fight for it. So there's a lot of just kind of interesting kind of light bulb moments going off as you're explaining this. And so when you ended that marriage, when you did kind of you took the risk and did what was right and did all that, what was your mindset sort of like? Were you like confident or just like super distraught, or what were you going through emotionally at that time?
Well, Robert, what I always say is it's always about timing and alignment and things in our life. And particularly coming to a decision to end a marriage and break up a family is definitely not something that's made overnight. It's something that, happens over a long period of time. In my case, it was, it was a couple years of, really feeling unhappy, and I believe he was unhappy, and we were just kind of going through it without really communicating about it. And it actually came down to a moment for me in the shower when I had really been, tired of crying myself to sleep at night and feeling really lonely in a marriage. And that is another emotional prison that is just not a healthy place to stay. And I was in the shower, and one morning I heard God whisper to me, trust, believe in the possibilities, and don't be afraid. Don't think that I'm moving you away from something. I'm moving you towards something. And it was in that moment, literally with the water running over me and hearing those words, that gave me the courage to finally say, I can't stay with it this way anymore. And then after that, the timing and alignment was off. When he was willing to fight, I was kind of despondent. Then when I was ready to fight, he had, checked out. So it was just timing and alignment was off. And then eventually it just aligned up where we just agreed, let's just end it. So it's never an easy choice, and it's not a simple process for sure. And, the way I best equate it is like when we talk about the loss and the grief, that you go through those same stages in divorce that you do when you lose a loved one. But there's one key difference is that when you lose someone you love that you're not going to see them anymore. Where in this case, you have to continue to see them and interact with them and communicate with them, especially if you have children. And so that makes it kind of even more painful and doubly difficult to learn how to create a new normal way of living for yourself with that loss, because they're there. You see them at kids' activities, you're communicating and coordinating logistics. And so if you're not healthy in the beginning stages and being amicable with them, the one you end up hurting the most are those children. Revenge and anger and resentment and all those kinds of emotions that can rise up when we're hurt in the loss and the grief can be very, very damaging. And in the end, as adults, we have the emotional maturity to move through and work through that. But at the ultimate end, the children can suffer from that. So for me, I chose from a very early stage to just, what got me through most was, forgive him for he knows not what he does. He's just hurt, because it hurt for him, for me to leave. And that does hurt a person when somebody chooses to leave somebody. And that is what kept getting me through all the hard times and the difficult, painful times that I experienced. I just kept looking with forgiveness and understanding that he's just hurt. He's just hurt. He's just hurt. So sometimes coming at trying to hurt me is just because he's hurt. So it allowed me to be able to stay in that higher vibrational level of just love and gratitude and thankfulness and appreciation for him, as hard as it was. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does, and it's pretty powerful, and it sounds like the way you describe it is sometimes we have to remind ourselves again and again that, I mean, it definitely applies to a divorce, but also in general, if someone is just being mean to us or rude to us, it's usually not about us. It's usually about them, and they might be having a bad day, or they might be hurt in one way or another. So for me, that's a really huge lesson, not just in that divorce, separating, breakup sort of context, but just also in general, when someone's mean like that, it's not always about us. And so as far as you kind of getting back to the normalcy level, how long did that take to get from, making this huge decision and going through like the fear and all the separating stuff? How long did it take for you to get from that starting point into actually being okay and just kind of feeling right again?
Well, that's a loaded question, because it's really different for everybody. For me, in particular, I am a woman that is not built to break. So anyone that tries to break me, I'm going to make sure I show you that you're not going to succeed. So I have quite a tenacious attitude within myself and a resilience. So my greatest challenge was I was faced with not only, we were living together in our home for 6 months when we decided to actually divorce. And it took a judge to court order one of us out of the house. And believe it or not, against all understanding that most would say, oh, a judge would not take a stay-at-home mom with little ones out of the home, I was actually the one ordered to leave. So I had a lot of pressure put on me at the beginning where I had to move out. I had to find a place to live. I had to, because I had been in the stay-at-home mom for 11 years, I had to re-enter the workforce. And that was a real challenge because I exited the workforce before the internet. And then all of a sudden I had to enter the workforce with this new thing called the internet. And so I had lost 11 years of experience to compete with my counterparts when I'm looking for a job. So that created another challenge, re-entering the workforce. So I had kind of a lot of whammies hitting me all at one time. So I'd say commonly what I tell people is good 2 years, I would say, is a good rule of thumb before you're really starting to kind of come out of it and feel like you're footed and a bit stable. It takes a good 2 years. And in that process too, oftentimes people will start dating and doing those kinds of things so they don't feel the rejection or the loss or the hurt. And I also tell my clients, like, it's okay to do that, of course. Naturally, we're human and we need that companionship. But at the end of the day, you're really not emotionally available for a whole lot until about at least 2 years out of it.
Okay, that's good to know going in. And also what I'm hearing from you is that I think we all are going to and probably have started over and reinvented ourselves multiple times. And again, whether that's in a divorce situation or just in general, I think like that's just part of what living is, right? You might have a business go under or a career that has to pivot or restart or change jobs or change towns or change professions. And maybe the divorce is what pushes us to do that, or it might be some other sort of inciting incident like a spouse or relative or someone gets sick or dies or whatever. So it sounds to me like we just need to be ready for that and know that, we're going to have those hard times or those awkward growing pains, and it might be a divorce or it might be something else, but that's just part of living, right? That there will be tons of unexpected things.
Absolutely. Life will throw curveballs all the time. And it's really how you choose to meet them at the plate. Do you choose to let the ball hit you and knock you down and stay down? Do you want to get up and run? I'm one who wants to choose to get up and run. I'm also somebody I can share. I have been laid off 3 times in 7 years. So talk about restarting all the time, right? And a lot of times too, if you take a step back, it's also the universe trying to get your attention, that it's trying to move you somewhere else to something different and show you something about yourself. And if you're open to it, the lesson can be quite insightful if you're open to that. So oftentimes I've experienced when these changes come to us, they're to move us in some positive way. But it's how we choose to look at it based on our life experiences. If we want to choose to, see it as negative and why does this always happen to me, then you're going to keep attracting all these things that keep happening to you. But if you meet it with a positive attitude of, okay, I guess I wasn't meant to stay in that job. That means when that door closed, now a new door of opportunity is opening up to me. I can't wait to see what it's going to be next. And with that kind of energy, you'll start attracting new opportunities. So it always comes down to timing and alignment in our mindset. And, a lot of our belief systems have been built from the experiences and the families we've been raised in. But as adults, we get the choice. We get to choose if we want to stay in that pattern and say, hey, has it been working for me? Or, you know what, I want to change that pattern. That doesn't work for me anymore. I want to do this now. You get to choose every day in every moment how you want to respond and allow it to either give you power or take away your power.
That's really reassuring, especially when you put it like that. Yeah. So,
So
yeah.
I'm committed to coaching people to their personal power and to always choose to take that positive step.
Well, fantastic. Well, this is a very needed service that you provide so that we can avoid that pity party, avoid the downward spiral, and then find a way to overcome that fear, right? Because it's always easy to look back and have hindsight and say, oh yeah, that bad thing that was happening to me in the moment, I felt at the time like something was being taken away from me, but in fact, maybe something was being added. It just took a while to work out that way, and I was being set up for something better, but it's always tough to know that and recognize that and have that self-awareness while we're going through that struggle, especially if we try to go it alone or we try these alternatives that you provided, like leaning on friends and family members, when we might just need to go to have a better support system and have more of a professional who knows what they're doing and can coach us through. And so along those lines, if people are struggling with like the divorce or empty nest or the life changes, then how and where should they reach out to you and get some of the help that they need?
Well, I have a website. They can reach me at www.blissifyyourlife.com, BLISSIFYYOURLIFE.com, or they can email me at love@blissifyyourlife.com, or they can reach out and call me directly on my phone at 916-425-8383. I do offer a 30-minute free personal coaching session that I make available to anybody who just wants to talk and get to know me a little bit more, talk to me on a more personal, intimate level, learn a little bit more about myself. I'm more than willing to share. I just am here to love and serve and create a love movement to empower people for greater strength and thrive in their life and design a life they love living rather than live with the feeling of surviving.
Awesome. And who wants to just survive? We all need to live that best life, because otherwise we're going to run out of time, right? There's no point in suffering needlessly when we can just get that little extra boost, that encouragement, that help. So just to recap some of that contact information there, the website is blissifyyourlife.com. Terry's email address is love@blissifyyourlife.com, and then her phone number, so that way you can claim that 30-minute free personal coaching session, is area code 916-425-8383, which is a really great thing to provide, because a lot of people out there are either too afraid first of all, to ask for help, and then sometimes it's hard, especially in this internet age, to actually talk to a person. You can go on Facebook or go on message boards and do some reading, but sometimes you just need that personal real life connection. And then also, you mentioned earlier that you have some sort of a meetup group in the Sacramento area. Did I hear that right?
I do, and I do want to just piggyback on what you said. One of my my greatest passions that sets me apart and makes me different and unique from everyone else is that I am an old school girl. I want to reach out and I want to look you in the eye and I want to touch you and hug you and let you know it's going to be okay. So I am the gal to go to and personally connect with. I'm out there also in social media. I'm having a steep learning curve about all that. But I am much more reach out and call me, and I will meet with you personally and talk to you for sure. As far as my meetup group, yes, I host a meetup group once a month. It's a divorce support group that's saying yes to yourself. Yes, standing for your empowered self through the process of divorce, and it meets in Roseville once a month, and it's typically about the end. It's Friday night on the last week or two of each month. I haven't really established an exact same day every month type situation yet, but I do host one on Friday toward the end of the month, and I hold them at the Holistic Lighthouse in downtown Roseville.
Super cool. And then, so to find that meetup group, is there a name for it that people can easily search on Meetup to locate that?
Yes, it's finding your empowered self through the divorce process.
All right, finding your empowered self through the divorce process. So if you happen to be in the Sacramento and Roseville area, then go on Meetup and find that and see when the next meeting is, and make sure to show up. And so for this Meetup stuff, is anyone ever like nervous, especially when they're a first-time attendee? And is there anything that you'd want to tell anyone who maybe has hesitations about showing up to this sort of thing?
I have not experienced people having any kind of hesitation. Surprisingly, I have had more men than women and which I love, because I feel the world really needs more of a male voice to emotional pain and challenges. And the women and men that have come have been very open and very revealing, and they have all given me feedback that I create a very safe space for them that feels comfortable for them to trust and open up, because their hearts are hurting. And I bring together people that are going through the same type of process, so it makes them feel safe. So please don't hesitate to come. I urge you to come and just check it out, and you'll make friends along the way that can relate to what you're feeling and experiencing. So I urge you to please come. I do have my next meetup this Friday night at 6:30 on July 27th at Holistic Lighthouse.
Awesome. Well, we hope that some people will show up who need to be there, and like you said in there, it's so nice to hang around people who get you, right? And whether that's a meetup group for other marketers or other podcasters, or in your case, other people who are going through this rough divorce life transition thing, there's just something to be said about that reassurance of knowing that you're not alone, knowing that there are other people who are going through all the exact same things that you are, or pretty similarly. And also just I don't know, maybe it sounds a little sick, but just that whole saying of like, if we all put our problems into a basket, we'd probably see how bad everyone else's is and just take ours back. So maybe we can get some of that perspective and just see that, okay, I'm not alone, other people are going through it, and there is that light at the end of the tunnel. It will be okay. So yeah, there's that Roseville meetup, and then blissifyyourlife.com, love@blissifyyourlife.com, 916-425-8383 to give Terri a call and chat with her and tell her what your situation is, and see that she will be able to give you help you to get from point A to point B, help you to get to where you need to go. So yeah, lots of great takeaways here as far as getting focused on gratitude and having that positive outlook and having the self-care and doing those things that are important. That way we don't devolve into the bad, negative thinking, childish, immature, hurtful behavior, because who does that really help? So anyway, thanks Terri for stopping by and for just giving us a lot of these light bulb moments and for being personal and sharing your story. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you too.
Thank you so much, and I sure appreciate you for what you do for the community and getting our voices heard. So I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Go right now to marketeroftheday.com/iTunes to subscribe to the show, listen to other episodes, and rate and review the show.